Hey friends, this is Joseph Maynor. So what I want to do in this video is I want to consider the thesis of whether God is infinite mind. And I want to offer kind of like a charitable, compassionate reaction from my perspective. So first of all, notice that we're using words here. We're using God, we're using infinite, and we're using mind. So you have to become conscious when you're dealing with thoughts versus when you're dealing with perception. If you've done psychedelics, then you'll have certain experiences, but then when you're coming down, you'll start to put those into concepts, or even in daily life. You'll have certain experiences, and then later on, you will put those into concepts. And so there's this duality between experience and ideas that Spinoza was aware of. He called it extension versus thought. And he thought that these existed in a double-sided coin, which gave him a correspondence theory of truth. So true ideas correspond to actuality for Spinoza. But then that leaves imagination in the shadow, that leaves fantasy in the shadow, that leaves idealism in the shadow, that leaves goals, And Spinoza's not against goals, but Spinoza would say that a goal is a species of imagination. It's an idea that is not true. It's not a true idea because it doesn't correspond to actuality. So I guess the question here is when some dream character comes up with a thesis about what God is or what spirituality is, including our own dream character, what do we make of this? Do we see this as some kind of a hard truth? Or do we see this as our character in the movie stating a truth? Those are two very different things. So in spirituality, typically when we're talking about truth, we're talking about truth with a capital T. We're talking about truth that exists irrespective of change or of the dream, which is masculine spirituality. Feminine spirituality is about discovering the whole and taking account of the whole. Sort of like putting your ego in high relief, even if it's the divine masculine ego, right? I've got it all figured out. I'm going to tell you, like you're advancing your own individual sort of finite perspective in the movie as the one right perspective, because that's all you can really be for somebody who is consciousness. So you have to kind of as weird as this sounds, you have to kind of know your place as a commentator or somebody who's offering. And you also, when you're receiving spirituality or spiritual insights, you also have to realize that all this person really is a dream character to you. This idea of I'm going to chase a guru who's going to tell me what absolute truth is, that's a huge trap. You can spend a lot of your life in that trap, and it's people who are in that game, they want you to be trapped that way because they make money by the fact that you're addicted to them as they're being a guru to you, right? It's like somebody constantly telling you you need me. I remember when I watched Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica documentary, they hired a therapist that they paid a bunch of money to try to help them resolve their issues. I recommend all you guys watch this. Watch Some Kind of Monster, that documentary by Metallica. You'll see that they hired a psychologist to come in to try to help Metallica mediate their issues so that the business of Metallica or the relation of Metallica could continue on in the dream. Right? There needed to be some changes made. Oh, it's a great personal development. I hated it right at the time because I'm this is so like, I don't even want to use the word that I was thinking, okay, but shameful. It takes a lot of guts to put the shameful parts of things on full display, though. And ultimately, I look at it in hindsight, like they were growing a lot. Actually, the band was growing a lot in this documentary. But the point I'm trying to make is that they hired a therapist, a very expensive therapist, to try to coach them, to help them improve their situation. And what you'll see, actually, it's kind of a subtext of this movie or documentary. What you'll see is how this guy is trying to survive as a coach. He's trying to survive. He's trying to, like, you need me, you need me, you need me, right? And it actually looks like desperate. Like, you can see how he's trying to survive. He's trying to earn his keep. And that's exactly what spiritual teachers are basically trying to do to you, is they're trying to earn their keep. They have to have a reason for you to continue to relate to them, right? They have to kind of like hang a carrot in front of your face. And, you know, look, I'm not attacking anybody. I mean, I've been guilty of this too, right? I mean, anybody who is in reality on some level is trying to exchange value for money, right? And people do a good job of this. Nobody is perfect, right? People lie, you lie, right? It's like the kid, you know, I didn't eat the cookie from the cookie jar. You see the cookie around the mouth, right? And you're like, okay, right? It's human. Humans lie. Humans steal. Humans cheat. And the way that humans present spirituality then becomes an issue, because are you presenting to me like an unbiased perspective, or are you only, you know, you're presenting your perspective, but then you're taking it to be the absolute truth? This is what Spinoza was concerned about, and why Spinoza tried to defend his perspective through reason and intuition in a very rigorous way. Now, you may look at that in hindsight as you can't do it that way, but you got to give him credit for trying, right? See, this is where, like, I've gotten a lot more tolerant of people who have different opinions than me, and you know, especially with regard to spirituality. So, you know, we all play games in a different way. So, for example, I'll give you a good chess analogy. So, with regard to chess, I hate tactics, personally. I hate tactics. I hate endgame strategy. I like openings. And like specific openings that sort of like resonate with my personality. I like to work on drills for those openings. Because for me, like, I'd rather win a chess game in the opening than have to fight at all. I don't like to fight, honestly. Even though I'm in the legal profession, you know, it's so funny, like, me and my boss, like, we prefer not to fight. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny because in the past, I did that. You know, I went through this whole thing of like, okay, what I mean by that, like, we prefer not to fight, is sometimes fighting can be ridiculous and stupid. Like, we will fight if it makes sense. Sometimes there's another kind of solution. There's a way to solve the problem for everybody involved, and it doesn't involve being arrogant, aggressive, or even too passive. You have to learn how to be assertive. And you also have to you also have to know yourself, like, what are your values? Like, you know, because when you go through life, you don't want to the longer you go through things, the more you learn, and the more you realize, you know, You take a lot more information into account when you make a judgment. Your judgment gets better. So, for example, with regard to chess, I like doing drills on the Smith-Morra gambit. So it's like the Smith-Morra not accepted versus Smith-Morra gambit not accepted versus the Smith-Morra gambit accepted. So, and when you run through the openings, it's like solving a problem by having theory, right? Like you have more theory than your opponent, so you're going to win. You have more knowledge. It's like somebody in Minecraft who like understands all the rules, or somebody in Monopoly, like you're playing Monopoly, right? You read the rules of Monopoly. You understand Monopoly. The person you're playing against, they don't understand those rules. Kind of also understanding law. Law is similar to that, or science even. Science is kind of similar to that, right? Like you understand certain laws, and then problems are solved by virtue of understanding those laws, as chaotic as they might be, like in finance, for example, if you're a stock market investor or something along those lines. There's a little bit of uncertainty involved in that. The thing about chess that's cool is there's no uncertainty. It's not like poker where there's an uncertain factor. In chess, you have complete information. Whether or not you realize what to do is a secondary issue, but in chess, nothing is hidden. But I think it's important to understand, like when you play games, the longer you play games, the more you find out like about what you really like to do. So it's not about having a super aggressive opening necessarily in chess. It's the beauty of understanding how theory can be leveraged to achieve a certain result. It's not just all about like tactics, right? Now, certain personalities, they hate openings and they like tactics, right? They like calculating, they like attacking, they like... And then you have strategy, which is a little bit different than openings and tactics. So strategy is something that I like. So for me, it's like openings, strategy are kind of like beautiful to me. It's beautiful to me. So you got to realize that every perspective has every personality has a different signature as to what they consider to be beautiful or not. People like different kinds of music. People like different kinds of expression. Some people like ugliness, right? So, you're trying to like say that, yeah, is there really an objective component to taste? That's an actually interesting philosophical question. Is there an objective component to morality? I think morality is on a little bit more stable footing than taste. Like what is beautiful very much depends on perspective. But then, is truth beautiful? Is peace beautiful? Is love beautiful? Right, sort of independent of perspective. So we get into this kind of thing. Okay, and then so let me now switch into Minecraft. So with Minecraft, I've been playing Minecraft since 2018. So I don't know how many years that is now. Long time. And I've seen a lot of updates to the game. I have a lot of knowledge of the game because I've played it for a long time. I went through different phases of the game. So when I first started playing the game, it was just about, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was just taking whatever was around me like a stage red person interacting, like not giving a fuck. And then I went through kind of like a stage blue period where I figured out, okay, you can find a village and start trading with the village, and you can kind of live a lifestyle where you're selling them shit and they're giving you emeralds. I went through a stage orange period where I was building like automatic farms. I was like enslaving villagers. I mean, you got to realize like everything you're doing. Well, you got to make a relation between the game and real life. See, I think that's a point that I'm trying to make in this video, is make a relation between the game and real life. Stage green, I went through a phase where it's just like, okay, I'm no longer going to eat meat. I'm actually in a stage green. It's so funny. Some people think that stage green is the highest stage on the spiral. It's high. It's a high human stage on the spiral, because stage green is all about like minimal impact, but also success, human success. Like you can think of like stage orange developing a conscience, developing like a holistic conscience, but like as a human. And so when you play a game like chess or Minecraft, you're not playing to kick somebody's ass. You're playing so that everyone involved can enjoy the game, even the people who are trying to kill you, right? Well, this is actually more like spiritual stages, but I mean, stage green can be reactive, but stage green is assertive, right? They're not aggressive, they're not passive. So yes, stage green is a very high stage on the spiral, no question about it. And when you're reintegrating the human, it's almost the highest human stage, because yellow can be a little bit too, right, intellectual sometimes. But sometimes that the intellectual insights that yellow has are actually very wise and very much needed on the path. So, but when it comes to the way that I play Minecraft now, is because of the fact that I understand sort of the game. I've done it all at this point, and then I restarted a realm, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to play the game. What's so funny is like, it's much simpler now. Like, I realize that, I don't really have to build anything. I don't have to use redstone. I don't have to build farms for anything. It's like once you figure out like a good food source, a good shelter source, a good way to transport, to leverage whatever like trading you need to do with different villages through the nether maybe, you don't necessarily need... Most of what you would try to do in Minecraft from a survival perspective is unnecessary. You might do it because it's beautiful to you, though. See, that's the thing. You do what is beautiful to you. So you can see how deep, like, aesthetics really goes. But it's ego, right? It's in the dream. Like you do what you find beautiful. If you find doing drills in chess, in a particular, like the Smith-Morra Gambit, unaccepted, and there's like maybe like 10 variations that you're going to see. If you get enjoyment like just like learning those drills by memorization, but it's not even memorization, it's just like you just do the drills over and over and over again. It's almost like subconscious programming. But if you think about it, that's exactly what school is subconscious programming, right? Like when you learn chemistry, or you learn biology, or you even learn spirituality, that's subconscious programming. That's ego. So I think there's this thing where like certain people with spirituality, obviously they want to have it both ways because they're a dream character to you. But what you got to realize is that you got to sort of make the distinction between consciousness as a being and what is being displayed within consciousness, or consciousness as a whole or a relation, and what the parts are of that. So that the first one was the divine masculine, which is consciousness as a thing. The second is the divine feminine, which is consciousness as a whole or a collective. And then there's the divine marriage, which is the relation between those things. But you can see all of this, though, is really just theory, right? It's pointers. So when you say that God is an infinite mind, that's just a pointer from your perspective from my consciousness. See? Or when you say 2 plus 2 equals 4, I mean, it might as well just be like buck, 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 buck from my perspective. Like, the Charlie Brown, right? When you watch Charlie Brown, like the wah, 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 wah. Right? See, because as the sovereign, you can always view a dream character as a dream character. That's the divine masculine. The I am. I'm the boss, right? I'm the one who has to die and witness my own death. Now, does that take you outside of the dream? Obviously not, because you cannot behave in an infinite perspective. You cannot speak in an infinite perspective. See? So therefore, from my perspective as the absolute, even my own persona is a finite perspective. And I recognize that immediately. So anything that I say about spirituality or anything, it's just another voice in the wilderness. The problem is, though, is if you want to hitch your wagon to being an expert, right? So now it's like, I'm going to tell you what's what. I'm going to be the scientist that's going to tell you that force is equal to mass times acceleration, right? How long is that going to last, though? See, and you're always trying to defend that, right? Because that's what gives you value. Is people have to feel like you're over them. People have to feel like you're over them, or else nobody would be like, it's like flies being attracted to fly paper. You turn yourself into fly paper so that flies are attracted to you. But then you got to be the fly paper. If you're no longer the fly paper, the flies are going to go away, right? So this is why we have these gurus that, I don't want to name any names, man. And I've done this too, man. I didn't even do it really to try to get people attracted to me. Although, in part, I did too. I went through phases where I was doing that too. And then some of this is subconscious. The ego wants to feel right. So, to be able to say I'm right, it could very much, in a limited perspective, be kind of true. I mean, but at the same time, nobody can be right spiritually for you, right? The idea that I'm right spiritually for you, I view that as an unfortunate encroachment on the sovereignty of somebody else, because full well that nobody can be consciousness for anybody else. Nobody can really even be the truth for anybody else. I mean, that gets into this thing where it's like, I'm the white knight, in the movie telling everybody else what the solution to everything is. I'm Moses coming down from the mountain. Man, that's polarizing. And you know what? The reality is, being polarizing is exactly what makes you wealthy. But you're gonna get hit, you're gonna get a karmic hit too from doing that. I mean, look at Donald Trump. Stage orange. I'm starting to believe now that Donald Trump is probably more stage orange than stage red. I thought that he was probably stage red before, but I think now, so he plays around. He plays around with what he's doing. He plays around with kind of. I see he plays around with purple, red, blue, and orange. He knows how to speak to these kind of stages, but the reality is that when you become polarizing, you're also going to get pushback from that. And so I think it becomes very important, when kind of a stage green side to me, when we this is where like stage green differs from stage orange. So like when we decide to try to become successful, right, as humans, in terms of like human self-help, finances, health, relationships, stage green is a great model because stage green is about peace. And I mean, you can see this in the hippie movement, right? I mean, I live in San Francisco, so I can, that's one of the benefits of San Francisco, actually, is that you get your stage green fix, right? I mean, when I go to Vegas, it's like stage orange. Okay, so nothing wrong with stage orange. But stage green is about, look, man, like, live a life like Jimmy Carter, where you live in like a home that costs less than $200,000, even though you're wealthy as fuck. You're frugal, and you're doing stuff to like help other people. I mean, that's a higher way to live than sort of being like super into marketing, right? And I mean, stage orange is super into marketing. When you think of like a cold call salesman, for example, that's somebody who's super into marketing. And aren't we like annoyed? So the only way that like a cold calling salesman can be palatable is if they're like funny, or maybe they're an athlete, they have some kind of charm or something like that. So otherwise they're annoying as fuck. You're like, get the fuck out of here. So that's why a lot of people don't do well in sales unless there are people coming to them. So for example, if you're a car salesman, people are coming to you. But if you're trying to sell like, or you're trying to cold approach or something like that, that's very stage orange. And you're either good at that or you're not good at that. Or you either love that or you don't like it. So when I got out of school, I was selling radio advertising for a little while at one of the local radio stations here. And I think I lasted about 6 months in that job. I just realized, dude, I fucking hate this shit, right? Because when you're a salesman like that, or trying to sell life insurance or something like that, I never did that, but I'm just saying like that would be hard, right? Selling life insurance, like, I mean, who wants to buy life insurance? So, you have to, when you're selling something in a stage orange manner, you have to make it seem like there's a value to the person who you're selling it to. And sometimes that really just isn't really doing a service to that person, because really you're trying to sell something to somebody that they don't need. Or you're trying to sell something to somebody that's only going to sort of addict them to your courses or your advice. You're creating a tribe by making somebody feel like they're not enough in some way and that they need you to help them to improve. Well, when it comes to spirituality, I mean, the only way that you can really help somebody improve is to liberate themselves, see? But the problem is that becomes a graveyard, right? It's like crickets. Nobody is going to pay attention to you. You're not going to get 5 million subscribers on YouTube preaching that kind of message. It's like an anti-marketing thing. Spirituality is hard as fuck to market for this very reason, right? Because it's almost like you have to like, you can't teach like straight spirituality, because if you're honest about it, you would have to say, all I can really do for you as a spiritual teacher is help you, guide you to develop your own spirituality. What I'm saying is only to be taken as a kind of model for you, right? But see, the problem is we can't do that when our bread is being buttered by people thinking that we have the right answer. So you can see how you have the right answer for me, right? Good luck with that one. But the problem is, though, it takes a while for you to realize this in spirituality. And so you have people that are young on the path. They don't realize this. And so they're like moths to a flame here. And it's going to, to be the higher level spiritual teacher would to be like, you got to break up with me at some point and start playing your own solos. Start playing your own guitar solos. Don't copy me. I don't want you to copy me. Okay, friends? See, I think this gets into the relation between the human and the divine, and also the differences between the human and the divine, and what the divine really means, and why the divine is different from the human, but also at some level there's a working with or a marriage that can be developed between the human and the divine. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.